And we are back. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast. You won't hear me slip up and say pregame show or postgame show.
Just the show,
baby.
Just
the show, because that's all we have from now until October as the Philadelphia 76ers season comes to an end. So that means only 3 p.m. shows for us going forward. So everybody get used to the normal time once again. Set your schedule, like and subscribe, hit the bell icon so you know exactly when it's showtime. And that's 3 p.m. here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. Welcome on a Monday, the start of the offseason, as we rip the Philadelphia 76ers apart for all that they did to all of us during the entire 24-58 campaign. Still can't believe that's their record. Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, Devon Givens, Bree with us. All of you already in the chat. Great to see you all. Good to be back with you guys. We're going to see each other, of course, on a daily basis like we used to. And
for better or for worse.
It's going to be fun. We'll have our moments.
All families do.
We all do. But it's great to be back. It's good to see everybody here. Good to see everybody there in the chat. We have a lot to talk about. When we signed off, Rich, Bree, and myself yesterday, Derek and Kyle were still doing a bang-up job with all that they did at the arena for the videos and the press conferences, the exit interviews that were going on at the arena. These guys were there doing their thing. So we didn't get a chance to speak to them on the air about what was said pregame or postgame. So I can't wait to pick your brains on everything that was said from the players to the coach to the president of basketball operations, of all that they threw out there yesterday, because it was an eventful one, man, that we're sitting back here and we're like, all right, they're doing the stuff pregame. They're about to play a game. We didn't hear from this player, that player, that player. When are we going to hear from them postgame? No, and then, by the way, you still have the other two.
You guys sent us a link to call into the show. I'm like, buddy, we've got like 2.5 hours of sitting here in this chair. So we wanted to do our due diligence.
So me and Bree were talking. It was like, let's at least check and see what it was going to be like. What was it like yesterday?
Well, because I will tell you, I set an in-media room line of 5 p.m. I was like, this is where I'm setting it when we'll be done. That was at, 3:10, 3:15, right, whenever we got in there. And we comfortably cleared that. I think it was like 5:15, 5:30, something like that by the time we were all done. And
so my thing was, this was unusual because I've never been involved, even though I wasn't there, but never been involved in the game day exit interviews pregame.
And we did them all. Like they have done pretty frequently over the last 5 years or so. Hey, we're going to do some of these, like mostly the guys, the stars that they can't convince to come in the next day. It's like they do those in the locker room after their season-ending loss. And then the next day, it's the role players, the veterans.
And sometimes 2 days after that is when you finally get the coach and the GM.
So it was a unique situation. I think I was saying to a friend of mine earlier, the funniest but also the saddest part about sitting there yesterday was, if you were to ask me what was the theme of what was said,
thank God it's over.
Thank God it's over, and it can't get worse. Like my optimism, if I'm Tyrese Maxey or Kelly Oubre or Kyle Lowry, whoever, name any guy on that roster, their optimism was simply based on the fact that every single thing went wrong and there's no way more could go wrong. Buddy, if you don't think things can't get worse for the Sixers, you haven't been here long enough, because they can still lose the pick. They still have injuries and more things that could go wrong. There could be another burner account scandal. Yeah. We could find out that somebody is evading taxes and can't pay the rent at their arena. Like, you don't know what could happen. But that was the main theme, is that these guys have been so beaten down by this season that it's only up from here, everybody.
Kyle Lowry was asked, how will you remember this season? I'll try not to.
That was the best response. That was the best response right
Kyle.
there.
Felt the same thing.
That was the best response. So yesterday, of course, just to start with the things that we didn't get a chance to speak with all of you in the chat when we were here, and that is the theme of Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse are both returning. Daryl Morey made sure he said that very clearly to the media, to you guys while you were sitting there. We had our questions on the show. I asked Rich on Friday, and my question to him was, will we get a chance to see on Monday, because I thought it would be Monday until the press release came out, about yesterday. Will we see them together at the table on Monday? Well, we got our answer, and that was those two sitting together, Kyle, to end yesterday's media availability. So my question for you right away is, as we ask everybody out there, make sure, number one, you go to allphly.com to read the story from Kyle and Derek, the things that they put together at allphly.com. And while you are at it, we do have a new special that you can dive in on for $36, everybody, to jump in and become a member of the Die Hard community. You can read these stories. Derek's right away. Joel Embiid's injury fuels uncertainty, pessimism as Sixers begin critical offseason. That's one. And number two, you have Daryl Morey's plans to change the Sixers is at odds with the core he chose. That's from Kyle Newbeck. Kyle also had one. The Sixers season is over and they need a mental reset. $36 at allphly.com. Sign up your introductory offer. That's your price. You get a free t-shirt. You also have a chance to jump in on many, many things like our Discord and events where we have a bunch of those that we'll tell you about throughout the show as well. So make sure you do that. And with it, I'll go back to Kyle's piece to start off the questioning here. Daryl Morey's plan to change the Sixers is at odds with the core he chose. He chose it last summer, as you alluded to in this piece at allphly.com. It failed miserably. Even in your piece, you pointed out how this is one of the more disappointing seasons in NBA history. Not just Philadelphia history, so NBA history.
To your point, not to cut you off, but I'll let you finish.
Thank you.
Okay, Kanye.
I went back and I looked at the
old Kanye, not new Kanye, to be clear.
Anyway, I went back and I looked at the last 26 years of preseason predictions. For every team that was projected to win 50 games, 24 is the fewest number of wins out of like 115 teams.
Not even. Wow.
That legitimately is historic.
Historic. So historic numbers for this basketball team. And with that, both are coming back, both Nurse and Morey. Should Morey be the one to make this decision? And how comfortable are you with him being the guy that's still in charge, keeping Nurse, and restructuring this entire roster to get it back to the preseason prediction of 50-plus wins that at least Derek and I had? I know you went under. We'll go back and look at those later on. But
one of the few predictions I can take a
you
victory
got that
lap
one right.
on
We
this
got
year.
that one wrong.
What did you predict?
Under 50.
I just took the under.
Just took
I don't
the
remember
under.
what
under the 50.
Yeah.
So how comfortable are you with him being back and in charge, and also keeping Nick Nurse as that part of being in charge?
Well, I think the real problem is it's not that I think that Nick Nurse and Daryl Morey are dumb basketball people, right? And it's not that I think that Nick Nurse was the root cause of the season. It's not that I think Daryl Morey can't turn this thing around. It's that what I heard yesterday and the vision that Daryl talked about at the trade deadline, the Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin trade was the start of what they want to do. We want to get younger. We want to get more athletic. You want to be deeper. And like those are admirable goals, right? And something that he talked about yesterday was that I thought was interesting was that teams increasingly are doing multiple things within a game that historically they used to have to choose between them. And the example that he used was teams are now good at offensive rebounding while also being good at transition defense. And part of that is because the roster has so many young and long and athletic players that a great example is the Houston Rockets, right? They are number one in offensive rebounding rate and they have a top 5 defense. That is a reflection of the fact that they have one of the Thompson twins. They have Tari Eason. They have a Jabari Smith. They have, Şengün's a great offensive rebounder, great rebounder in general. They have a lot of guys that are good rebounders, but you can allow individuals to attack and the rest of the team can get back and catch up and run back and play defense in transition. And so that's where he's coming from. I understand it. I get it. You don't have to compromise anymore. You don't have to play hey, we hang back and we don't offensive rebound because we want to get back and get set on defense. It's a false dichotomy. Where I run from what Daryl said and where I can't really wrap my mind around is what he is saying runs against the style of team that he chose to build and chose to seek last summer when you had the cap flexibility. You had the options to say, we can go get a max guy. We can get Paul George was the main guy, but could have been other people if you wanted it to be someone else. Or we could take the money that's going to be used on Paul George and you could divvy that. You could $20 million to this guy, $15 million to this guy, and put them on a series of more manageable contracts. And they chose the third star. And that's who Daryl Morey is, right? Daryl Morey is a stars drive winning. Stars are what matter in the playoffs and all that. And I don't see a realistic or reasonable version of the future Sixers where you don't have to pull that apart, because the way the new CBA is structured, it is very punitive when you get into these aprons and especially into the second apron. And I think it is a choice between, do you want to be a star team? Do you want to be that 3-star team? Then you're going to have almost by definition more older, shorter, and less athletic players, because those are the guys available on minimum contracts. And so I think what he's saying makes sense. I think what they say they want to do around this core makes sense. I just don't see most of the reasonable paths to make it happen unless you are very fortunate in the draft, unless you let's say this 1 year, you get Cooper Flagg, you get Dylan Harper, whoever it is, and then you just get a ton of internal development. But you got to get pretty lucky. Like, I don't see how the two ideas necessarily can exist or coexist. And I think that's the biggest challenge for this franchise moving forward.
So I do, like, when you have Joel Embiid and Paul George, you're not going to play at a super high tempo pace. You're obviously not going to be young. I agree with that. I think more, or at least what I hope he's talking about is, all right, we have all of these young kids, whether that's Justin Edwards, Adem Bona, Jared McCain, Quentin Grimes, still pretty young. All of these kids, we're going to believe in them and bring them back rather than go out there and pursue the Kyle Lowrys, rather than go out there and pursue the Reggie Jacksons. And that, rather than pursue the Andre Drummonds. Yeah. And if that's what he means, like, yeah, you're not going to change. Like, Joel Embiid's not all of a sudden going to become, running up and down this court like prime Clint Capella. Like, that's not going to happen. Yeah. Paul George is who he is. But the pieces around them, I much prefer this version of what they have. Like I said, with Grimes, with Edwards, with Bona, with McCain, with hopefully your top 6 pick, rather than having to over-index and overly rely upon experience. This is one thing that I have been really frustrated by over the years. Yes, it's one thing to go out there and get players who have been there before, who have the experience, who the coaches count on, but they have just gone over after so many players who just physically can't at this stage of their career, and over-indexed on them and over-relied upon them. If he does see the error in his ways, that to me is a good sign. Again, it doesn't change who Joel Embiid and Paul George are, but I do think it's a better like at one point in the season, you just went, man, Kelly and Ricky, yeah, they might not be the greatest decision makers or shooters, might not trust them, but boy, is it nice to see them occasionally get a rebound and actually fill a lane.
Right.
If that's what he means, I'm okay with that.
The interesting part, though, as it took them a while to get there, because even if you look at the year that they were eliminated to the Boston Celtics, they still had those older players outside of Tyrese Maxey, even when you had James Harden and Joel Embiid, of course, but then you also had Marcus Morris in the past, you had Patrick Beverley, Nick Batum, and you can just go on and on and on of these players. And how many times have we talked about, even with Nick Nurse, even going back to Rivers, where we would say they won't play younger players. You have your younger players on the roster that you try to develop and you try to get in there where they just simply wouldn't play them. How many times last season, folks, where we were discussing in season, Ricky Council IV is showing something. We're not saying he's going to be something in the end, but for this year, for this particular game that we're all sitting here watching, you could probably use his energy and getting up and down the floor and causing some havoc and doing some things instead of throwing out there, I don't know, PJ Tucker or whoever it may be, although they weren't on the roster at the same time. But the idea of it took this long for them to figure out that the young athletic talent is where they need to be. Hell, we got so excited when the trade happened, in a sense, that they haven't had wings in years. They trade James Harden. They get back 3 older wings in Robert Covington, Nick Batum, and Marcus Morris.
2 out of 3 are out of the league now.
And we were relatively like, okay, they have some length there on the perimeter to do some different things. So once that happened, again, a year ago, 2 years ago, you could have gone into the offseason with all the cap space, with the idea of adding that third star, but still looking for some young length to go out there on the perimeter instead of, going out there and adding Reggie Jackson and Kyle Lowry and doing what you did with the Andre Drummond piece. Maybe, the KJ Martin, the unfortunate part, he had the injury that shut him down for a while before the trade happened. Young, but athletic. Shorter, but athletic. Passed the Kyle Neubeck test just because he can jump pretty decently, even as a 6'4" guy. So that's the thing for me, is hearing them say that now, but having the opportunity in the offseason after seeing a different type of older players do exactly what you're now talking about, the younger players, and going back and looking at acquiring these older players this past offseason. That's two times you had the opportunity to do so. And he's lucky that he's getting a third opportunity where the ownership hasn't jumped in and said, okay, enough is enough and we need to make a change. But that's my part of it. This should have been done. As much as I like the building, and look, I'll take it on the chin myself of I was wrong in reevaluating and how things went last offseason where I thought they did a really good job. He was wrong. I bought into it. I was wrong. He should have done this last summer with the available cap space that he had to go out there and find that type of player. So I don't remember how much Derrick Jones Jr. got. I know we talked about it a lot with Vince.
I think he's around
like 20.
I think it's like 11.
No, KCP was a 20.
No, I just meant the overall contract, not annually.
Okay.
So let's just say 10 or 11.
It was 3 for 30.
3 for 30. Maybe you could.
So 9.5, 10, 10.5 in the final year, and then he's
right.
unrestricted free agent.
Now, good on him. He found the right spot for him.
He did.
But that's the type of players that we were throwing around on those types of contracts that they could have.
And that was, I actually brought up the Clippers as like part of the way the NBA is going. Like the Clippers made a very deliberate decision, right? Like they would have brought Paul George back on a pretty high number.
Yeah.
If they had been able to convince him, you're below where you want to be, but it's still a good amount of money. But ultimately what they said is, we have a line with this guy. And I think the weird part of getting to this spot where you were the team that maxed out Paul George and find yourself in this position because you were not able to put the right combination of players between these guys is that the reason you ended up here is that with Harden, you weren't just going to give him the full max, right? Like, and now there's a gap between what they were probably going to offer him and what James Harden and his people were posturing as though they were getting, right? Like, we heard some things that were like, oh, Daryl's going to offer James the mid-level. And like, that was not going to happen. But there was certainly a gap between the two sides negotiating, and rightfully so, right? There was a justifiable reason to say, James, you're worth a lot of money. He certainly has proven that he's still a very high-level player, led the Clippers to the playoffs this year despite Kawhi Leonard only playing like 36 games. But they made a similar choice. They made a similar, like, hey, we'll pay you a lot of money, James, or we're preparing to pay you a lot of money. It's just not the max. It's not for the most amount of years. The Clippers did the same thing, and the Sixers saw that and said, we're going to give that exact guy the 4-year max, and they end up in the spot where it's like, well, what if we had signed Derrick Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn and did these other things that the Clippers did and retained some level of flexibility so that if you have a good year, or even if you don't, you have manageable moves that you can make, and it's not so much like we have this black cloud hanging over the franchise or these big anchors that are weighing you down. It's you stay light, you trust that your main stars are good enough, and if not, you can at least rearrange a little bit more than I think they're able to right now.
I think they can rearrange a lot. You just need those 3 stars to be 3 stars.
Wow. And that's the big problem, right? It's like who with PG, I think you could at least reasonably make the case like he'll shoot better on open threes. Like there's some low-hanging fruit that's there for him.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Your article, Derek, that you wrote about today at ALLPHLY is about what I think is the big existential problem for the organization. Yeah. It's all built around Joel has to be healthy. And like, I don't mean just healthy enough to play. He has to be healthy enough to be a high-level impact player. Who has confidence in that right now? Like,
and we don't even know what that looks like.
Right. The Sixers are posturing as if they do, and they should do that publicly. Like, whatever people in the chat think about what was said about Joel and what Joel's future is, Daryl Morey's not going to sit there at the press conference table and be like, oh no, we just have no idea if he's going to be healthy again. He's going to project strength, and it's the right thing to do. But when it's honesty hour and we can sit here and say it's not a high odds proposition that Joel Embiid arrives in October around Halloween next season and is back to MVP Joel. And that is the single biggest pivot point for this organization moving forward is, what does that guy look like? What does he bring to the table?
No one has that answer right now. The reevaluation is in 6 weeks. And even then, we still have to wait until training camp to find out what he actually looks like out there on the floor. A lot to talk about, including what more Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse had to say in yesterday's exit interviews with the media. We'll play some of that audio as well, talk about the players and what they said, what stood out to Kyle and Derek while at the arena. Sixers season is over. We're here with you, 3 o'clock every day. We'll keep it going right on the other side on the PHLY Sixers podcast here on a Monday. Look at that. We're back.
Well, we no longer have the Ace Hardware temperature check because the season is over. Temperature check.
I'm wearing shorts. Temperature check. No, it's warm out.
The entire organization gets a temperature check down from me on our final one here. But we do still want to tell you about
what cooling off.
Yes.
They cooled off.
We do want to tell you about what Ace Hardware has to offer. Ace Hardware Home Services offers a wide range of residential maintenance, installation, and home repair services that are available, including plumbing, heating, cooling, and electrical. They offer free estimates on equipment installation and replacement with trusted advisors and options that are best suited for your home and your budget. At Ace Hardware Home Services, whenever they get ready for the next job, they remember what to bring. They bring experience, local plumbers and techs that handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installations and upgrades. They bring understanding, they listen to your goals, and the job isn't completed until you're satisfied. And they bring helpful to your home so you can spend more of your time on the projects that really matter, like scouting the draft. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project.
And guys, when you fix your home, the next step is making it inviting, making it beautiful, making it comfortable. Good thing we have a new friend from Ashley Furniture where the low prices are blooming. Spring into savings, guys, at Ashley. Oh, yeah, we're hitting you with all the spring puns today as it gets warm out. Save up to 50% off a living room, bedroom, and dining room furniture at Ashley. And you can have it all delivered free and get long-term, no-interest financing. You can save on top brand mattresses, get free delivery, setup, and removal. But do not wait. Spring into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and Philadelphia. Financing with approved credit, minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Hurry to Ashley. Visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information.
Go get that furniture. It's warm out. You make the house look nice.
I have to see. So the savings right now are on living rooms, bedrooms, and dining rooms. I got to see if they got some outdoor stuff. Because I think I told you recently, we had our neighbors had this huge tree next door, and it just dropped seed pods all over our backyard area over and over again. Well, the city just took the tree out, and now I'm like, oh, that's much more usable. I might have to upgrade the setup on that back patio, baby. So, Ashley, I will be into the store.
This is completely off topic, but I had one tree that was planted in my neighbor's yard, and when the wind would blow, the branches would scrape across my roof. And it was like legitimately like maybe 6 inches on their side of the property line. So I could not take it down myself, and I was losing my mind.
So
I couldn't even trim the tree, even though it was hitting my house.
That tree before it was gone, I spent every spring and summer at the start. I go up on my roof, and anything that was on, I was just hedge trimmers just out there like, get out of my property type of deal. Becoming an old man in real time.
We've got a lot to talk about. You might hear some old man talk.
Make sure you go to Ashley Furniture to check out that new furniture. You might see Kyle in the building with you.
I'll be looking
for some patio furniture as the weather is getting nice. All right, let's welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast here on a Monday. It's the first day of the offseason for the 76ers. We have a lot to get into. We've been talking a lot about Nurse and Morey. Let's play some audio from yesterday's press conference.
Ownership gave us the resources to make aggressive moves this offseason to put a championship roster around Joel and Tyrese. And sometimes those aggressive moves this offseason to put a championship roster around Joel and Tyrese. And sometimes those aggressive moves don't initially work out, but we feel good
I
about
love the
that.
initially in there.
Those three guys are three all-stars going forward. I have to do a better job putting
Andy
a
Reid,
supporting
Morey.
cast around them.
All right, there you go.
Got to do a better job.
Got to do a better
A
job.
classic, a tried and true staple of Philadelphia mea culpas from powerful sports people.
And at one point, do we stop calling them all-stars until they make the all-stars teams again? Because that was now a year ago for all of them. But just listening to that, again, had the resources to go out there and do it. But initially, as you pointed out, it looked good, but it did not pan out.
Yeah, and look, Kyle and I, and Devon too, were certainly, we did not like the depth they came into the season with, especially on the guard rotation. They were redundant, they were old, they lacked size, they lacked athleticism. We had an entire year-long running bit. Nobody's allowed to be shorter than Kyle because of it. At the end of the day, none of that, this was always going to be a disaster of a season with Joel Embiid playing 19 games.
Yep.
And they have a 0% chance of turning this around if Joel Embiid doesn't play games effectively next year.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as we can talk about the resources and putting better supporting pieces around them, I agree with that. And I quite frankly think they're positioned to do that. Part of what you had to give up to go out and pursue Paul George is that you couldn't bring a lot of your pieces back. Next year, you could have more continuity. That's great. Whatever. And you can bring back, now you can go out there because you're not pursuing cap space, re-sign someone like Quentin Grimes, re-sign someone like Gershon Yabusele. You did well in the draft and undrafted free agents last year in Edwards and Mbona and McCain. That's great. I do think you're in a stronger position than you were at this point last year. But none of that matters if Joel Embiid cannot play basketball at, if not an MVP level, at the very least an all-star level.
Yeah.
And because none of us really have confidence in that, I think we take a lot of these other concerns and we react to that, because at least that you can change, that you can talk about, that you can debate. That's not super depressing. Is Quentin Grimes good enough to be worth his contract? We can debate that and we can argue that. And it's sort of like deflecting from the real existential dread that we're all feeling.
So on that subject, one of the things that I think was most, not that I was expecting to get some very honest answer about Joel's extension, but the answer we keep getting when we ask or somebody asks from the media about, why did you give Joel the extension in September? Do you have any regrets about it? Any form of that question. Always for Daryl circles back to, well, Paul George was not coming here without that extension happening. That in itself is not a good explanation for committing to Joel Embiid through 2029 at that number.
Especially because Joel Embiid was already, if you're going to sign Paul George for 3 or 4 years, Joel Embiid was already locked up for 3 of them.
Yes. It is not a coherent explanation, and it's not justifiable to say the guy whose contract is already going through those 3 years, you have a long runway where if there's a year gap between how long Joel is locked in for and Paul George, and Joel wants out and has the level of play and health to ask out, you can trade him and get value and then trade Paul George. So, the justification is in a reality where things go well for you. What people are asking Morey, and by extension the organization, is everything that you thought you knew in September when you gave that guy that extension, why has it gone basically the exact opposite way, right? Their position has been, we expected either kind of neutral or slight positive in terms of how Joel's knee would react, and that would give him an opportunity to play as many games as he needed to. We'd manage it. He'd be ready for the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. And instead, it was down. If anything, it was negative, right? His knee got worse to the point that they ended up doing an arthroscopic procedure. And there has been no explanation for how they got that wrong. And by extension, if you got that wrong, then to me, the thesis for extending him falls apart to the point that they've had to use Paul George signing here in the first place as that's the only reason they have given publicly for why he's extended, other than like, well, he was an MVP and blah, blah, but like, you can't explain the urgency to me. And that's a really concerning thing, that it was like Paul George was only signing here if you were giving him the max and you're extending Joel Embiid. Like, you're straining your credibility at that point.
And there is, so X-Man in the chat says, can you all stop with the if Joel nonsense? It's time to turn the page.
You can't.
I disagree with that for two reasons. One, I do think just because he was so good before, I want to give him one more chance to go out there and see if they can just find the magical elixir of stuff to get him closer to being able to get through a season. I think that is reasonable. But more importantly, even if you wait and you get until, let's say, January of next year, I don't think, like, you can't trade him when he has 4 years left at $60 million per, and he just came off a season where he played 19 games and played so ineffectively. So I don't really think there's an argument to trade him this year, both because I think it's reasonable to give him another chance to come back, but also because he is at the absolute nadir of his value. You can't just, this isn't 2K, you can't just turn the page. There's no turn the page button, unfortunately. No. That being said, like, if you're going to run one more year with Joel Embiid and you're sitting here with, Paul George, I actually don't think if we're sitting here in the same spot and next year goes out the exact same way, 2 years left of Paul George, I don't think it's going to be all that difficult to get off of that contract.
I would go a step further. I think you could move Paul George in a trade this summer, and you'd have to, if you wanted a great or very good player in return, you'd have to give up other stuff.
No.
If you were happy with like a couple role players and maybe not a fringe first, but like a mid-value first, I think you could move him for that. Like, I don't think Paul George is untradeable by any means. I think the bigger problem is, what are you trading him for if the bigger thing is Joel's health, right? Like, I don't feel urgency to move Paul George when Joel's the bigger, like, you can't move him and your fortunes are really tied to him. Paul George can still be a productive player. Paul George, even this year during a down year, had, like a month and a half, even maybe 2 months where he played good basketball. It's just not good enough basketball to be the number 2 to Tyrese Maxey. So just trading him to get off that contract, I don't think that's necessary, but I think is possible. I'm only making an urgent move to trade him if there is a great talent opportunity, and we can talk about them at some point this offseason, or we're wrong about Joel's market, that there's somebody out there that you get off his contract and it just blow it up, reset, Joel's out, PG's out, and then it's just the young kid show. Then you could convince me, do whatever, turn him into contracts and a pick. Okay. Until then, you're just hoping for a step forward or a step back toward his career production, I think, is the more reasonable route.
I'd be very concerned. I'd be very curious, to find out who would and why they would trade for Paul George after this season. He didn't, as he had a month, absolutely, and he had the injuries, which we would talk about a lot. He didn't do enough, in my opinion, for another organization. Now, I'm not the general manager or president of basketball operations to say they shouldn't, but I would want to know why after you saw that, because he had multiple opportunities to go out there as Maxey's number 2 and show out. Mm-hmm. And he didn't. He had the month that Derek talked about. The problem with that month, the month before they had a 9-3 record, while he had a personal individual really good month in January, the record went down again. So he wasn't playing winning basketball. So I'd be very interested to find out what you would get back, because that's obviously important on that 3 years, especially when the market was set by the Clippers. I mean, they kind of did this with the Tobias Harris thing, all jokes aside with the 12 stuff. They did that then, and that's why we all questioned, like, why in the hell are the Sixers, the Jimmy Butler left and JJ Redick is leaving. You don't have to give him a max contract. The Clippers kind of set that number of what they believe he's worth. Go off of that. Yes, he bet on himself. He won by getting that big money. They also did the same thing, and they got better with cutting the ties with Paul George and bringing in those players that you listed to go along with James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. That's why I'd be really, really interested to find out who would, as we start maybe hearing some things out there as things get closer to the trade deadline, the start of free agency and the draft and all, of who would be interested, because he didn't show enough to warrant any discussion of bringing him in on that number for 3 more years.
But so here's what I would say.
Yeah.
I think the important thing to keep in mind is a team that will want Paul George is a team that has first and second star, or like, let's just say a first star and very good role players that is just more reliable than Joel Embiid, right? Where you have let's throw out some teams that were interested in Paul George that we know of last offseason. Golden State was interested in Paul George.
Yeah.
Steph Curry, while he's not, Iron Man, he tends to miss some time every year with he used to have bad ankle issues, but bumps and bruises along the way. The Warriors were interested in him as the guy, the spot that basically became Jimmy Butler, right? They were in the mix for Paul George last summer. They're now out, right? They're committed to Jimmy but that's a team that's like, hey, we have Steph. Draymond is anchor of our defense and this high level player. We bring in Paul George. We ask him to be the third guy. We have other role players. We're cooking. Denver was interested in Paul George. They were a team that explored sign and trades for him. And what that would have looked like, I'm not exactly sure. But Denver is a team that Jokic, for all the debates about him and Joel, one of the things that you absolutely cannot argue in Joel's favor is that he's more reliable than Jokic, right? Jokic is very healthy every year, plays almost every game, doesn't get injured in the playoffs, whatever. So you have him, you have an Aaron Gordon, you have Jamal Murray. You say, we'll trade, Michael Porter Jr. or we'll trade a combination of contracts.
Do you know what David Adelman's relationship with Paul George is like?
No, I do not.
Text him and find out.
So the point is,
Orlando,
when you have
Martian said Orlando.
When you have the first guy, and that guy is like, I know, or I feel with high degree of confidence, that guy will play, let's say 70 games. Then a Paul George, who's a little more erratic, that might miss time, has more appeal to me because I'm not so much worried about, I need Paul George to set my floor. I'm worried about how much does Paul George raise my ceiling? And that's the pitch that you're making to other teams. And so I don't know who that would be. I can't sit here today on April 14th and say, Paul George could definitely get traded to this team. I just think you have to think about who he is, his profile differently than what he has to be here because of who Joel is.
But we've had plenty of discussions about the Maxey side of elevating his play as a number one when Embiid is out. Paul George could have also maybe elevated his play there.
For sure.
I'm
not making excuses.
No.
He needed to be better this year. We all agree on that.
We're just conversing about it where those examples are, while Maxey is no Jokic, clearly we're not putting him in that category. And even if he's not Steph Curry for sure, but he is an all-star, and you are also an all-star. Maybe we shouldn't be sitting here talking about 24 and 58 when he was playing, at least at that point, enough basketball games of the 40, whatever he played this season, to elevate that level of play as that number 2. It's going to be a lot of interesting discussions like this, of course, around those 3 and the rest. And, of course, with the coach and president of basketball operations, we'll get back to that on the other side. Read your super chats as well and talk a bit about what the players had to say yesterday outside of the fact of what the theme was. I'm happy that the season is over. Guys, we agree with you that it's the same. We back
all agree on that one.
Right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. All right, and we got to tell you about our good people from Bet365, our presenting sponsor all season long. We couldn't thank them enough. Made us a lot of money. Even Rich was saying we might have to go back and check and see what numbers that we had on the ones that we hit, we missed. Might be a good number overall, maybe in the positive. And yesterday, we ended the day on 2 non-Sixers games, which were important games for Denver and Golden State. And if I remember correctly from Sunday, I said Jokic would get a triple-double at Bet365, and I predicted that Steph Curry would get over 25 points in his game. Now, Jokic had 18, 7, and 7 because eventually the game just wasn't close enough against the Houston Rockets. So we missed on that one. And as far as the game goes with the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry did have himself a good game in that one, exceeding that 25 points at Bet365. But for the entire year, we did pretty good. And we still have playoffs to go through Sixers aren't a part of it, though. 90 million users worldwide. You could be a part of that. The live streams of 780,000 events a year. Early payout offers across the NBA and the NHL, even in the postseason. And new customers can get 150 in bonus bets when you bet 5, win or lose. Sign up. Use code PHLY365. Deposit 10. Place a bet for $5. And you get back 150 in bonus bets. Again, that's win or lose. Don't forget about the early payouts. Tomorrow, you got some play-in games. You can jump right in on the tip-off Tuesdays, placing qualifying offers at parlay bets totaling $20 or more on those NBA games and get up to $25 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus, physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Well, the NBA playoffs are getting ready to start. Not with the Sixers, but with other teams. So you're going to hear a lot about home court advantage. Well, your home needs home floor advantage as well, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to some of those big box stores. You wander around endless aisles, and then somehow you're hauling all of those materials home, looking for an installer, and coordinating everything yourself. Those big box stores might have a flooring department, but the person helping you with the flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space so you can see how it looks with your furniture and in your house. You get precise measurements taken and have all your questions answered so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing, plus you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast here on a Monday, the day after the end of the season for the Philadelphia 76ers. We'll get to some super chats here in just a second. I want to tell you about a couple of upcoming events here at PHLY as we hang out with you, and we hope that you can hang out with us. Again, we told you about becoming a member for $36 at allphly.com. That's your introductory price. Well, we have a PHLY NFL Draft Summit that is showing up on Thursday, the 17th.
I will be there.
That is going to be at J.D. McGillicuddy's.
Yes, sir, in Manioc.
111 Cotton Street in Manioc, Pennsylvania. And join Anthony Gargano and Fran Duffy for a Draft Summit party at J.D. McGillicuddy's. That's from 6 to 8 p.m.
I'll be throwing paper airplanes at them while they're doing the show, I will be there.
I will be there, and I'll make some with you, and we can both throw some paper airplanes at them both and see how professional they are. They get a little flustered.
Maybe
by
a
the
paper football.
Paper
How about
football.
that?
That's a pretty good one. So we'll have that on Thursday. Diehard member, come on in, hang out with us. Also, May 5th, we have the PHLY Flyers Draft Lottery Party. This is a diehard-only event, once again, here at our studios, here at the PHLY studios and offices. Go to our events part here at allphly.com. And then we have Fran's film session, May 6th. 5:30 to 8 o'clock, also right here. This is after the draft, so you'll get some great stuff on whoever the Eagles draft. I'm sure Fran will break down some of that film of who they actually selected in the 2025 NFL draft. Huge, huge draft for the Birds. And finally, May 12th. This is what it was all for.
You already know.
24 and 58.
I've been hearing from some more of you. Got your tickets. You're ready to go.
Get those tickets.
Lining up.
And remember, if you're just tuning in, you didn't hear it earlier, $36 introductory offer for the NFL Draft Day live offer here at allphly.com. Sign up and you get to hang out with us for the draft lottery party here on the 12th. That will be somewhere 7:30. We'll also do about a 30-minute show on the eventual number 1 overall pick, right, Derek? That I think they're going to land on that night. So with their luck, they're going to get the number 1 overall pick to right the ship.
Well, but Derek's luck. Somebody else's, maybe
Well,
super producer Bree's luck.
Well, your one and only pick, a spin on that night. So
A lot of pressure on
He's
me.
already
that night,
nervous
but-
about it.
man, yes.
3.5 weeks away and he's sweating bullets.
So come on in, join the community, join the family, allphly.com, become a diehard member here at PHLY and join in on the fun that we have. And it's going to be a great time. It's going to be a busy, busy month. It's going to be a good month for all of us here at All PHLY and you being a part of it as well. Bree, let's play that last bit of audio from Morey and Nurse speaking about looking in the mirror and understanding what they need to do to right the wrong of this season.
You need to, really take a step back, and everyone needs to find a mirror, starting with myself. What could have gone better? What can I do better? And there's quite a few things there. I would say one of those things is I was very focused on finding veteran type players who, generally perform very well in the playoffs. And I didn't put enough emphasis on the team getting through the regular season. And so next season, for sure, we will be a younger, more dynamic group.
All right.
So
there it is again.
this is the thing that drives me absolutely insane. If they can't play in the regular season, they also can't play in the playoffs. Kyle Lowry and Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond were not playoff players.
No.
Your premise is BS.
That was complete spin, right?
Yes.
Like the only guy that you could say that applies to is Caleb Martin,
Yes.
right? Caleb Martin is an inconsistent regular season guy who's had big playoff moments. The rest of them were just old or regular season players,
Yes.
right? Like, so frankly, you just didn't sign the right people.
Right.
It did not have to do with, we over-index on the vets. You signed Kyle Lowry. If you signed Kyle Lowry at 38 years old and said, I'm bringing him back for playoff production, I just think you're full of it. That is not true.
It does not, fundamentally does not get easier to play in the playoffs. If you
No.
can't hang in November, you're screwed in May.
If you can't beat someone off the dribble playing the Charlotte Hornets, you're not doing it against Drew Holiday and the Boston Celtics.
Now, I agree with his general point that they need to get younger and that they over-indexed on old people, but that's a talent evaluation miss and or this is who coach will actually play miss, not we thought that we focused too much on the playoffs.
Okay, you brought up an important point there too. One of the things that has to be monitored next season, because everyone is coming back, is like Nurse still has to play the young guys. And I think he deserves some credit for developing the young guys that they've had at the end of this season.
Easier to do that in a lost season than when
Correct. Where I won't give him credit is we were subjected to the Lowry minutes for so long. We were subjected to the Reggie Jackson, Kyle Lowry backcourt. We saw over and over again when he had the choice to play different options, he chose to play the old guys. And so Nurse saying in a press conference, hey, we need to, if we're longer, more athletic and younger, some of these things like the rebounding, like the transition defense will clear themselves up. But it's a little bit like the guy in the hot dog suit on I Think You Should Leave saying, we're all trying to find the guy who crashed the Wienermobile through the storefront. I think it might have been you. You were, at the very least, you were in the passenger seat and not helping things, right? So roster change or maybe lack of change, right, will matter where they keep some of these young players and just promote them into bigger roles. But the coach also has to be willing to say, and this is not, I will say this again, this is not a Nick Nurse exclusive thing. When Doc was fired, everyone's, it's change is coming. They're going to play the young guys, and they don't play the young guys. One of the big fights in Denver, one of the reasons that has been reported that Mike Malone, who won a title, the only title in Nuggets history, and is the winningest coach there ever, one of the reasons he's out is that he did not play young players over Russell Westbrook. He chose repeatedly to play Russell Westbrook over young players. That's just what happens in the NBA. So some of it is on Morey to just simply not have old people on the roster. Nobody that is getting close to qualifying for Social Security is allowed on this roster. But the head coach also has to be bought in on that vision. Nick Nurse said the right things. Doing them is another thing.
All right, look, as someone who is older than Reggie Jackson, I do not like that Social Security bit, but I agree with almost everything else that you said.
None of us are that close to Social Security.
In basketball
thankfully.
terms, yes, they definitely fits that profile. We wanted to play that audio just so I can get both of these guys going on that topic all over again. So that was perfect. Let's get to the super chats here on this Monday. We got a ton of them after a season that was a big disappointment, of course, and both of the guys looking at the history of the NBA and where these guys ended, one of the worst in NBA history, disappointment-wise. JH says, what TF does Morey have to do to get the boot?
Fail again and get closer to the end of the contract.
Second part, I think, is key. I mean, look, when this all came down and there was a lot of buzz about Morey not feeling secure in his job, I said, yeah, but they owe $72 million to the two of them combined. I believe that was certainly a factor. I do think, I'm a pretty big believer in if somebody screws up, you give them a chance to correct it. And we can debate how much of that was, like, I'm pretty firm of the belief that as long as Joel Embiid was playing 19 games and looked like a shell of himself, we were all going to be pissed off on April 14th. That being said, he clearly made some mistakes. He has a chance to go out there and try to correct them. If it doesn't work 2 years in a row, then I think it's fair. Right. I've always maintained that, like, I'm not one. I don't think it's my job to sit here and say that people should be fired. I try to point out what I think they did well, what I think they struggled with, let fans come to that evaluation. That being said, like, you only get so long in this industry. It's fair enough to acknowledge that. And if your screw-ups lead to 2 bad seasons in a row, precedent has been set pretty clear. And also, if you come out and you play Andre Drummond ahead of a Dembona, I might have to change my tune on my stance.
That's going to be an interesting one. Courtland Posey says, what do they do if they lose their pick to OKC?
Cry.
Yes.
Cry and drink.
Cry and cry
Which
more.
you can do along with us right here at the PHLY studios.
Good point.
That's correct. I mean, that in itself will be, if not a whole show, maybe like a bunch of shows this summer if they don't get the pick, right? We'll have to sketch out like, hey, this is what a theoretical offseason might look like. But they need to get that pick.
Badly.
They need it as badly as any franchise needs anything right now.
And Derek, you need it why? So you can, what? They need to get this pick why?
Because it's the most important thing in my life.
Exactly. There you go. Sean Wofford says, you can bring in Sam Presti, Phil Jackson, or Red Auerbach. If the big fella isn't healthy and completely motivated, nothing else doesn't matter. This is all about JoJo and if he can get healthy. Make sure you go read about that at allphly.com. In Derek's piece, Kyle, I'll say it to you because you kind of brought it to their attention yesterday at the presser about what we've talked about, the mental side of how he's openly spoken about it. And it was something that you threw at them, and Morey said you have to talk to Joel about it. But that's a big deal. That's a big deal of if he's not the MVP guy that Derek was talking about, he has to get used to being a different type of player, but can still be effective and impact the game.
Yeah, it's about having an organizational mindset that is something that they need to help him with, right? Like, and a lot of what Morey said was like the resources are available to anyone, and rightfully it was not going to be like, oh yeah, Joel's seeing a therapist or anything.
Right.
Like that's not information that needs to be public. The question and the point was more that like, even if you get the knee to a good place, I worry that Joel needs the knee to be exactly what it was, like to feel that he is the same person that he was in December 2023 when he is just destroying everyone. Because if he isn't and he doesn't get there, does the mental side bleed in? And even if the knee is okay, tell him like, well, this isn't right. And you just get into this bad cycle. And there need to be honest conversations between Morey and Joel, coaching staff and Joel. Like everyone in that organization needs to be able to have tough conversations with him about what he's dealing with, because we see these bits and pieces leak out from him where he's like, this is the hardest I've ever struggled with an injury. And then has this, and that's before most of this plays out, right? He talked about that last spring when he played pretty well in that Knicks series in spite of everything. He was honest about this recovery has been tougher on me mentally than anything else. And so they need to have a strong handle on that, because that is one of the big potential existential problems that they're facing.
All right. Make sure, again, allphly.com, read Derek's story about Embiid and how he needs to, it runs through him. Cannoli, holy cannoli. If Kelly Oubre opts into his contract and they re-sign Yabusele and Grimes, aren't they basically running the same roster back? No money left?
I think they're basically running this. I think the goal of the offseason is a run it back offseason. For now, look, maybe something comes up where like a opportunity you can't pass up where you can flip Paul George is necessary for that. We'll see. But I think more or less, yeah, I think it's probably going to be a mostly run it back kind of offseason.
So your big offseason is the 2 draft picks, potentially top 6 and number 35. Grimes is basically your free agent pickup from the trade deadline, and bringing Yabusele back on a different contract.
Yeah, I think you'll be able to get him back on. A lot of things can change. Maybe a team swoops in that you're not sure of, but like I think the taxpayer MLE is realistic.
Okay, all right. Brandon from New Jersey checks in. Morey is good at drafting. Let him cook. Well, he's got to get that top 6 pick.
His
man.
track record here has been very good in
Which
the
is
draft.
funny because like when he came to Philly, he hadn't made a first round pick in like 4 or 5 years. Like he famously traded those pretty much all in an effort to build around James Harden.
Yep.
Got here, it's been home run after home run. Obviously, there is a big scouting department and an entire front office staff you have to give credit to. But just like all of the other decisions, credit and blame tends to run at the top, and you can't help but acknowledge he has done really well in the draft.
Credit him for drafting Isaiah Joe. You blame him for him to walk out that door.
I still blame mostly Doc Rivers for that one, but that's a different conversation.
Fair enough. But that 35th pick is also important to the length and athleticism and youth that they talk about. Very curious if they would even keep the 35 and take one of those younger players there. Something we'll talk about going forward.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, to me, unless you're moving that pick for a upgrade in value, that is it's not on the level of a top 6 pick, obviously, but that's a really valuable chip, because those are guys that you have on cheap, controllable deals generally. It's guys who tend to be very similar as like end of first round type of talent, right? So that's in a draft that people like the depth of it a good amount. That's a nice pick to have. So like it's not out of the realm of possibility that you could get a rotation player who's ready to play next season at 35. Like that could be a real add to the roster.
And just a quick name of a quick look at NBA.com. They had Thomas Houck. How do we say his name from Florida?
I think it's Houck.
Thomas Houck, the 6'9", 210, athletic, athletic and young, and see how it goes. But that's right there in that range, something like that. Holy cannoli with another one. Could Brooklyn drive up Grimes' price just so we can't retain him, or to tick off because when they let them get Ben Simmons? Well, they could. They have a lot of money.
I mean, they could definitely drive up the price. They can't drive it up far enough where the Sixers can't retain him. If the Sixers, again, theoretically, the only thing that the Sixers can't surpass are the 2 aprons. The first apron, if they use a non-taxpayer mid-level, the second apron, if they use a taxpayer. But you have plenty of room, especially if you don't get that first round pick between where they're at and the second apron. So there's really no way you can drive it up to a point the Sixers can't match. They might not feel comfortable matching it. That's a little bit of a different conversation. And they're certainly not going to do that just because they're pissed off. They would have to actually be okay with being left with that contract that they offer. But yeah, they could certainly, if you're looking at teams that would be a threat to drive up that price, they're certainly one.
Also, by the way, if they're pissed off that the Sixers made them trade for Ben Simmons,
that's not how
the call is coming from inside the house, buddy.
Yes.
That there was no real mystery as to what you were getting from Ben Simmons at that point.
Yep, absolutely. So those are our super chats, and we appreciate everybody jumping in on the super chat side of things. I also want to get the guys' thoughts on just one thing that stood out from the players as they spoke to them, but we are getting ready to go into overtime here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. If you've been watching on the Fast channel, thank you. We're back 3 p.m. every day for the offseason now that the season is done for the Philadelphia 76ers. 3 p.m. every day here on Fast and at allphly.com.
Our weekend nights are back, boys and Bree.
Yes,
it's a beautiful
we do.
thing.
So make sure you head on over to allphly.com to finish watching the show till its completion right here at allphly.com on the PHLY Sixers show. All right, cool. Something that stood out from the players yesterday, whether it was Maxey, George, Gordon, the young players. Anything that stood out to you yesterday from them and their exits?
Well, I mean, I brought up at the top of the show the whole woe is us, it can't get worse thing. I do think it was interesting. Not that I was expecting anyone to mutiny on Nick Nurse. He got pretty strong reviews from the players, which if you would have told me in, let's say, January or even early February that we'd get to exit interviews and most of the players had positive things to say about the head coach, I wouldn't have believed you, because we certainly went through some periods of this year where it looked like the team was quitting on him, right? Like we bring up the Denver game was a big one, and some of these other games where they're losing to bad teams and they had all the markings of a team that was ready to say, no, it's his fault. It's that guy, because that's the easy thing to do. But not every guy even was asked about the head coach, but I think by and large, like there was a lot of Paul George was like, I thought Nick did a great job of picking up the pieces and trying to make something of this season, and a lot of other guys echoed that sentiment. So that I thought was interesting and was surprising for me, not because I thought they were going to bury him, but just because you don't have to be positive about it. It could have gone any direction. You don't know. So I thought that was a noteworthy.
What did Harden say at the end of the last season with Doc? I forget exactly how he phrased it. He's my coach. It was like just a very cold review. Two things jumped out to me. First, Kyle Lowry saying he wanted to play another year. Better not be for this team.
You didn't even respond to my tweet when you put it out there.
I saw it.
Are you good with that?
It was one of those, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything.
I'm never going to begrudge a guy trying to get another year of playing in and another contract in. Just not.
And the hometown story is like, I get it. Like, I would like for Kyle Lowry to still be good.
Be a coach. Just formally join the coaching staff.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, you can still get money. Just
he's been good
it
for a long time.
Can't be salary cap money, and I can't see you on the floor.
Yeah,
That's
it's not the same.
And the other, Andre Drummond asked about his contract next year. He's basically like, oh, I'm opting in. I'm definitely opting into that one. What you get, no one else in the league's giving you $5 million. But he, sign flashing and neon lights. Yes, I'm opting in.
Yeah. All right. Well, some interesting stuff. Once again, you can also go to our YouTube page if you want to check in on all of those exit interviews. The guys put them up and recorded everything, put them up at YouTube. So go ahead and check it out at youtube.com/@PHLY_sports. Find the video section, the video tab, and you'll see the entire list there, not only of Morey and Nurse, but also of the players' interviews as well. As Bree put those up, the guys doing a great job, of course, with the video. A couple of news and notes around the NBA before we step away. Mike Budenholzer fired by the Phoenix Suns. So that is now Monty Williams, Frank Vogel, and Budenholzer all in succession gone from the Phoenix Suns. Did I miss anybody?
They were cooking with the Monty one, I think. Based on how his next job went. That was, boy, they got out of that.
I mean, he is
got out of the Monty Williams business right at the right time.
All-time bag collector. That was great. That means when the season starts next year, they will have 4 coaches in 4 years.
4 coaches in 4
years. And that means in the
Insane.
existence of PHLY, they will have had 3 coaches in a 2-year span.
Yeah, how about the existence of PHNX? I'm curious. The PHNX Suns, they've been going for about 4 or 5 years. So they were there with Monty, and yeah, this is crazy. So we'll see where that one goes, because even the Kevin Durant report is out there about they're going to, according to Shams,
he's getting moved, man.
Nobody thinks that's what I mean. Like,
they're going to work with the Suns to find him a destination. So
I would be stunned if Kevin Durant ever plays for the Phoenix Suns again. That would be every single conversation I've had.
So here's the one I will ask both of you and all of you. Is Bradley Beal there next year? It's his choice, but is he there?
One, you don't really have a choice.
No, it's just more of him saying, all right, let's find a destination and get out. So I'm asking, do you think he's
I think he's a Phoenix Sun.
Does he and his wife want to move? I think they like it there. I think location's a big part of Bradley Beal's decision making, not team, location.
Interesting. Very interesting. Also, The New Orleans Pelicans, after getting an extension on his deal a few years ago, the general manager, David Griffin, out, but remains Willie Green, the head coach. Then we saw reports that two phones, get the two phones, man. Two phones might
Joe
be.
Dumars, baby. Where's Mint Mobile?
He might be back. And he's like, he's emerged as the leading candidate, and they're going to talk throughout the week to try to work on a deal. Joe Dumars might be taking over the leadership stuff there in New Orleans for that basketball team with Willie Green still at the helm. David Griffin out.
We just love a retread in this industry, don't we? Because as long as I can hire someone who has failed before, let me get right on that.
At least he had success at
He
one
had
point.
some
so
success.
that's I won't. At least he's not like it's not like
It's just
Isaiah Thomas is getting
No,
the job.
well,
or
and there's
something.
off-court stuff that would make
I
that even
know.
worse. But like, there's no creativity in so many hires, and it drives me nuts.
Yep.
But enough. Well, never mind.
So,
I'm not going down there. I don't have it in me today.
and there is a draft tonight, everybody. The WNBA draft is tonight from 7:30 to 9:30. Number one pick goes to the Dallas Stars. I think we all know who they're taking there to, be the face of their franchise. To see if Paige can turn things around in Dallas as part of their, franchise, the face of the franchise there in Dallas. So WNBA is tonight. So go check it out. So I'm sure you guys have watched a lot of the women's college basketball to know a ton of the players that are there. Paige, of course, Seattle has the number 2 pick, Washington number 3. So see what it looks like there for the WNBA draft. Go support it 7:30 to 9:30 for the WNBA draft. Should be fun. My girl AZ decides she's going back to college, so she's not in this draft. AZ Fudd. So it's going to be Connecticut. It's going to be her team with Sarah Strong next year. Maybe she'll elevate her draft stock.
Shout out Gino REM, my man.
Will
What
Cooper Flag follow the lead? Go back to college? We'll find out.
Hell no.
No, we
Find out.
Hell no.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Well,
So-
especially because I saw, while we're on the WNBA tangent, I saw a report that Becker's deal with Unrivaled for like 1 year or for 4 years, whatever it is going to be much, much more than her WNBA deal money-wise, which is just like the financials of that league don't make any sense to me given a lot of
Unbelievable.
things. But yeah, I thought that was... We'll see what happens with this Unrivaled thing. Seems like I have not watched it transparently, but it seems like the people who are into it have enjoyed it a lot.
I saw
so.
that, and by the way, it's the Wings. I said the Stars. It's the Dallas Wings, but Paige is going to be number 1 overall pick. Yeah, I saw the numbers that they had like a super increase in the positive as far as their earnings this year for year number 1, and the investors were really happy. So I was like, how does she sign a 3-year deal? I think she's also she has an investment in it as well. So good for her. You got Nike already, got all these things. Paige, she's cooking. She's fine.
This era of, the NIL stuff is super fascinating to me across all sports, where you see the grumpy old men mad that someone, like, who's the kid, the Tennessee quarterback? I don't know how to pronounce. I'm not even going to attempt to say his name, but he's like holding out for a couple more $1 million or whatever. It's like, good for him.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
If you got leverage, use it. And what I was taught by my family, you can't get what you don't ask for. So, sometimes you just you throw it out there. Worst someone can say is no.
Yep. So we'll see where he lands this season.
Or go fuck yourself is probably worse
Pretty
than
much.
no, but we're in overtime, so I can say
it's all good. It's all good.
But when you have a personality like Kyle and I do, you get told to go fuck yourself anyway.
that-
So you
that
might as
happens
well
more
ask.
than you'd like, but hey, you got to roll with the punches a little bit.
All right, let's get to by the way, we'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Make sure you check in with us tomorrow and all week right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. Let's get to the world famous off-season roll call.
Oh, well, first I have to say, because Mary Overfield, regular reader, viewer, chatter, subscriber, said, did you see one of your Who's That guys, JD Davidson, got signed by the Celtics?
Oh, look at that.
Yep.
Who's
look at
that guy?
Might have to bring that back.
He graduated to a real deal. Good for you,
See if he
JD.
get some clock in the playoffs.
So
Good for him.
thank you, Mary, for bringing that up. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you also to my girl Winona,
Nona.
to
big
Money
WNBA
Mar,
fan. What up, Mar?
Eugene Ross,
Gene, see you on the 12th, man.
Igavini, Jess with the Purple Heart,
She's got the Purple Heart.
SB Cole,
What up, SB?
Darkness,
Turn the lights down for the Sixers. The season is over.
Aaron, who I know will be at that lottery party.
What up, Aaron?
Excited to see you, Aaron. Joaquin from Cherry Hill. We got Greeny Green,
Greeny
Provolone
Green.
John,
Nice.
Music Lover 31,
Send some new
Martian Lynch
music.
33, who asked if the ticket to the lottery event comes with paying the cost of a plane ticket. Unfortunately, Martian, I think that's going to be a no, buddy, but I'll look into it for future events.
You get some food, though.
Liam Stevens hanging out. Mellow 3 Point hanging out. The Internet Wizard Society
Yes. Good to see you back in there.
Hanging
Wizard
out.
Society.
Cannoli.
Holy cannoli.
Who else we got in here today?
Saw Sal in there. Val is in there.
Hookah Doncic is back, by the way.
Ready for the playoffs.
Hookah. I'm liking the Lakers' path right now. I will say that. I think that Wolves series, I think there's going to be a lot of cooking of Rudy Gobert on an island by Luka Doncic.
A lot of Julius Randle, Nas Reed front court.
But we shall see. Val, we got Val in the chat.
Yes.
Thank you, Val, as always, for stopping by. Yams in the building.
What up, Yams?
Who were our super chatters today? Bree, we had JH. We had Cortland. I actually know a Cortland who I was good friends with in college. So this is the second Cortland I know now. Thank you, Cortland, for the super chat. Thank you to Sean Wolford, Cannoli again, and Brandon from New Jersey. Thank you guys all for your super chats. Dan Taylor, Amin Art,
What up, me?
X-Man.
What up, X?
Throw up that X. Thank you, each and every one of you who took time out of their day
Yes.
in the middle of the day. Winona was working out. People go
Was
to the
she?
gym and they're,
Oh.
we tend to be in sync with like a Winona, either run or work out or something.
Good.
Whatever you guys are doing, we're glad you spend your day with us.
Saw my mom in there.
Mom's grandchildren always hanging out with us.
Mm-hmm.
3 p.m. Monday through Friday. We are back on a regular schedule, so we hope that you'll be here with us. If you want to be, if you're happy to talk with us as your Sixers therapy, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And please, for helping the algorithm, but also to say thank you to super producer Bree, hit the thumbs up on that video. Give it
The
a
best.
like. Helps us out a great deal and makes Bree and all of us feel warm and fuzzy inside.
Yes.
We're back at 3 p.m. tomorrow. We'll see you then.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.